Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'll talk if you'll listen. Episode 4. 4 episodes in the books. Thank you so much, guys. The feedback has been overwhelming. It's been great. When I first started this, and I've been saying this for a few weeks now, when I first started this, I had the mindset of this is a hobby, and it still is. I still feel that way. This isn't work. This is a hobby. It's fun. I enjoy it. I like doing it. And the best part about it is just listening to all of you guys share your thoughts on what the previous episodes topics were. It's so cool just to hear from you guys, reach out via email and Twitter. And the best part is the face-to-face conversations that I have. They're really, really cool. I really, really like it. It's so fun to have a conversation with you all. And when I record these episodes, that's what I feel like. I feel like there's a virtual audience in front of me and you guys are all listening. So keep the feedback coming. Keep the response coming. I really do enjoy it. Good or bad, I love it. I've gotten some constructive feedback too, and it's really helped the journey. And I'll continue to encourage you guys to reach out. Again, that's I'll talk if you'll listen at hotmail.com. So it's the same name as the podcast at hotmail.com. It's without the apostrophes though. A lot of people came back and said, "Hey, I tried to email you, but it didn't work." When you're typing out email addresses, case it's they're never case sensitive, so you don't have to worry about uppercase or lowercase letters. But things like apostrophes and commas can't be in email addresses. So it's just all of the words just kind of smashed together. I'll talk if you'll listen at hotmail.com or on Twitter at ITIYL underscore ITIYL idol underscore idol on Twitter. Keep it coming. Shoot me a direct message on Twitter. Tweet at me on Twitter. Mention me on Twitter. Keep coming up to me, talking to me. Whatever's the best method for you, no pressure. But I really encourage you guys to email in or tweet so that way I can read some of you guys' response on air. It'd be really, really cool. I'm also thinking about making a dedicated segment for you guys' thoughts and opinions, but I would have to increase the show's duration for that. So let me know how you guys feel about that. The show on average currently is about 25 minutes or so, and that's just to make it digestible for you guys. I don't really want to give you guys too much information all at once and just kind of like overload your senses there. But I did have a few people actually come up to me and say, "Hey, I really wish the episode was longer. Why is it only 25 minutes?" Just to break that down a little bit for you guys and just to help you guys understand, the situation a little bit. So my web host has a memory threshold on how much data you can store on their website. And of course, you have to pay for more memory. And based on the current plan that I'm at right now, I'm at a limited memory. So eventually it'll get to the point where some of the episodes you have to go to like YouTube or something to find the episodes, because I'll have to start shaving episodes off just to stay within that memory threshold. So in order to prevent that from happening too often, in order to have as many episodes on the web host as possible, I try to make the show about 25 minutes long. That way you can kind of like go to one place and get as many episodes as you can before I have to start taking them off. However, if the demand is there, I'll pay for more memory. It's not a huge deal. If you guys want the show to be longer, if you want it to be 40 minutes, if you want it to be an hour long, let me know. And if I get enough feedback, if I can justify doing that, I'll definitely do it. If it makes sense to do it for me, if it makes sense to do it for you guys, I'll definitely do it. I know a lot of you guys enjoy hearing some of the topics, especially from last week. The topics were really powerful. There were powerful topics. A lot of them surrounding race. And we all know race in some circles is a taboo topic. Race can also be a touchy subject for some, but I think it really helps us to understand not only our situation, but the situations of other people. And one of the talking points that I brought up last week that I wanted you guys' feedback and opinion on is racial awareness. And what I mean by that is, when did you first discover your race? When did you first know that your race was different from the people that surrounded you on a daily basis. And for me, the first wake up call that I got is when I went over at Asian friend's house in high school for dinner. And it was such a new experience for me. And it was a big deal for me because I had never experienced anything like that. And just to see my Asian friend and his siblings and his family just interact with each other, the way they behaved at the dinner table. The men got served first, the women ate last. They prayed over the food. There were a lot of different things that I had never experienced. Of course, you look at something like praying over the food. That we prayed over the food in my household growing up, so that's definitely something I was used to. But they were very, very, So the men sat down first. The women sat down. The wife stayed up to. I'm sorry, not the wife. The daughter. The oldest daughter served everybody. So the men got served first, including my friend, my Asian friend, who's only a teenager at the time. He got served. The father, the kid, the female kids got served, and then finally the wife got served. So it was a pretty unique experience for me, and that's when I first had my first wake up call. Like, wow, this is different. This culture is different. So I asked the question like, hey, when did you guys experience something? It doesn't necessarily have to be the first time, but when did you experience something that caused you to think like, wow, was this because of my race? And I had a listener by the name of Vanessa. Vanessa's been a huge supporter of the show. She's listened to every episode, and she also has always has some awesome feedback for the show. She always loves to give her 2 cents, deposit her 2 cents on the show, and she's always very passionate and energetic about her opinion. So shout out to Vanessa. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you for your story. So she shared a very powerful, very compelling story with me based on that question from last week, that topic for last week. And it was very powerful, and I'm going to try my best to summarize it because I don't want it really to take up the whole show, but it was very powerful to me, so I definitely wanted to share it. So Vanessa had a very unique experience. She had an altercation with some people, and after the altercation she felt like, wow, was this because of my race? And she felt like, wow, do I have to act different because of my race? And at the end of the story, I'm going to share one of her thoughts that was like really powerful to me, that I want to pose to all of you, and I want to hear you guys' feedback, hear you guys' question. So, and I do apologize to Vanessa, but I just don't have enough time in the show to just like go over the whole story. So again, guys, if you want the show to be longer, let me know. But short version was she got into an altercation with a guy in an elevator regarding just spacing in the elevator. It was pretty tight. She when, of course, in close quarters people can accidentally hit people or brush up against people, and Vanessa had her kids with her, and the guy got in the elevator, and she kind of braced him from accidentally injuring her daughter. So they got into a shouting match, and then there was another young lady on the elevator. Let's call her stroller lady, because she had her 2-year-old in a stroller with her. So imagine the scene now. It's a tight elevator, and you already have someone in the elevator with a stroller that's going to take up even more space. But after the shouting match with the guy, Vanessa gets into a shouting match with the young lady, because the young lady the whole time was just irate, and Vanessa wasn't even talking to this young lady, so this young lady took it upon herself to kind of just insert herself into the situation, and the guy was cursing, so the stroller lady got upset at the language, but directed that that anger towards Vanessa, and they got into a shouting match, and the stroller lady actually threatened Vanessa, and a fight almost broke out. But Vanessa saw the bigger picture and was like, hey, I'm with my kids. They don't need to see this. Then I gotta be protective of my kids, of my family. So just to avoid the situation, to diffuse the situation, Vanessa did something very, very, very mature, and she got right back into the elevator and said, screw this. I'm not going to expose my daughter to any more aggression, and I'm not going to escalate the situation. So screw this. I'm going to go back into the elevator. Now, mind you, the guy that she argued with in the first place was back in the elevator still. And at that point, Vanessa had a little bit of time to kind of like process the situation. So, Vanessa was like, she apologized to the guy. She said, you know what, sir, I'm sorry if you thought I was yelling at you. I'm sorry if you thought I was coming off, a little obnoxious. But here's why. The guy didn't acknowledge her daughter at all. And Vanessa just wanted to bring that to the guy's attention. Like, hey, look, my daughter was here. I was concerned that you might accidentally hit her. So I was just trying to avoid injury to my daughter, trying to avoid injury to you. And this is why. And after the fact, Vanessa's, after everything was said and done, Vanessa's daughter was like, Mommy, that man was mean. That lady was mean. Now imagine that, you have this 4-year-old child trying to understand what just happened. And you as the parent have to look at the bigger picture and go, I know, this was wrong, but it's just something that I had to do. And you kind of like just hope that they understand for now until they get older and you can explain more. But that was the first time Vanessa was like, wow, was this because of my race? Now here's what Vanessa said after one of the thoughts that she had that really, really was so powerful to me. She said she wondered if it was because that she was Hispanic that they responded that way. And she said she put so much effort into not coming off at the stereotypical rowdy, obnoxious Hispanic woman because there's so many stereotypes out there. She didn't want her kids to see that. And she feels like she has to, in certain situations, she has to behave that way because she doesn't want to be viewed in a negative light. Because she feels like in certain situations, she's automatically going to get viewed as the rowdy, raunchy, Hispanic young lady with the attitude who's going to be rolling her neck and putting the fingers in the face and speaking in Spanish and, with an attitude and just really aggressive. And she doesn't want to be viewed that way because she feels like she's more than that. And I agree. We're more than that. We're more than those stereotypes out there. Now, whether we want to admit it or not, and this is what I think I might catch some flack on, we can't just disregard our race. Some of those stereotypes are true. They are true. I think almost every stereotype is based, almost every stereotype. Yeah, some stereotypes out there are just stupid. But almost every stereotype has some foundation in truth, some variation of truth. And especially you have a perceived stereotype because we only can be exposed to what we see and hear, right? So, I mean, take a look at the whole police situation. Of course, we think, police are racist and they have this vendetta against black people because that's what we see. That's what we're exposed to. We don't see the police officers dancing at block parties. We don't see the police officers putting their lives on the line to help save, black people or any person of color. We don't see the non-black people standing up and supporting blacks and other people of color. We don't see that. We just see the negativity. So in our mind, we think, oh, the stereotype is this type of person hates this type of person. So when I said that, it was really important to me. And I just want to be clear when I say this. Don't feel like you can't be yourself in any situation. Now, changing your behavior to suit the situation, i.e., not cursing in a professional environment, not cursing when there are kids around, praying at a dinner table when you're surrounded by people of a certain religion who prays at the dinner table. When in Rome, do as the Romans do, right? You have to understand what the situation is, and you have to understand the situation that you're in. And you also have to realize that changing your behavior to suit the situation does not mean that you're being quote unquote fake or quote unquote not being yourself. I had a young lady in a week, or maybe it was last week, tell me that she is who she is and nothing's going to change that. Well, I think you're in for a rude awakening because something is going to have to change that. You can't be the same. You can't be the same. How many of us, let me know, guys, how many of you have come across somebody that you maybe went to school with years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, or somebody that you worked with years ago, and you run into them, you bump into them, and they're just the same. You know, one of my biggest pet peeves, I hate this so much. I hate this so much. So I grew up in a neighborhood where, you know, you had your neighborhood schools, and people really didn't disperse until it got to like high school. So for the most part, you went to the same middle school and elementary school as the people in your neighborhood. That was just the way it was, right? So I can't tell you how many people I ran into that I used to go. Now, mind you, this is over 15 years ago. In some cases, over 20 years ago. Now I'm running into people that I went to school with over 15, 20 years ago. And I say, hey, what have you been up to, man? What's new? Nothing, man. I've been chilling. Really? You've been chilling for 2 decades? Really? Come on, dude. There's more to life than just chilling. I mean, I'm a cool dude and I don't chill all the time. You know what I mean? Like, come on. It just doesn't make sense to me that people are just so content. I mean, look at Vanessa's situation where she was like, hey, here's this stereotype, and I want to be viewed in more than just this stereotype, so I have to look at the bigger picture and behave a certain way, right? Think about how many people just don't care about that. They're not self-aware. They're just out there like, I'm going to be who I'm going to be, and that's it. I think one of the most poisonous things that you could do or say is, if you don't accept me for who I am, you don't belong in my life. I think that's BS. That's BS. I think that's just a poor excuse to just be complacent with where you are. Last week we talked about black women being upset with black men dating white women, specifically outside of their race, but specifically white women. And one of the narratives that you constantly hear, and I brought this up last week, one of the narratives you constantly hear from bitter, and it's only bitter, it's bitter women, period, but bitter black women, is you can't handle a strong black woman. You can't handle a black queen. You can't handle this. You can't handle that. So you went and got a white woman. That's just, you know how I hear that? How that translates to me? That translates to me as, I don't want to grow. I don't want to stay the same. I have a toxic and poisonous personality. And you didn't want to deal with that. So you went and got somebody else. Damn right. Why would I want to deal with that? If you're willing to stay the same and you're not willing to change for any reason, whether it be at work, you know, you want to make more. How many of us know somebody at work who they want to make more money, but they're not willing to do the things that they need to do to make more money? Or how many of us know somebody in a relationship who are constantly complaining about being in a relationship, but they're not actively trying to make the relationship better? How many of us know somebody who aren't in a relationship and their daily activities consist of waking up, going to work, and coming home, yet they're complaining about not meeting anybody new? How many of us know somebody like that? Reach out, guys. Remember, I'll talk if you'll listen at hotmail.com or ITIYL underscore ITIYL at hotmail.com. Reach out to me. Let me know. What do you say to these people? What do you say to the people that want to stay the same? What do you say to people who don't want to change, who don't want to grow? They're content with where they are. Do you keep them at arm's length, or do you try to help them? Really, I would really love to hear you guys' thoughts. Please feel free. And just like Vanessa did, guys, reach out. Whether it be in person, just let me know. Let me know if you want me to share your story. Let me know if you have some thoughts or some feedback, and I'll share it. I want to hear everyone's feedback. And I want to hear someone's response to maybe someone else's response. You know, like maybe you guys have a thought about Vanessa's situation. Was Vanessa wrong? Should she have, apologized to the guy in the elevator? Should she have gotten back on the elevator? Let me know what you guys think. I would really love to hear you guys' thoughts. On another topic, guys, I feel like I struggle with if I wanted to bring this up or not, and I felt like I'd be doing, and it'd be an injustice if I didn't. So I usually record these a day before that usually record the episode a day before their launch. So right now it's February 15th. This will get edited tonight after work, and I'll launch it 7 a.m. on February 16th, Friday. Yesterday, Valentine's Day, February 14th, something tragic happened in the state of Florida. So if you've been listening to the news, I'm sure you've heard a 19-year-old kid, and I emphasize that, a kid, shot up a high school in Parkland, Florida. Majority Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, experienced a huge tragedy. A 19-year-old kid came in, injured a bunch of people, killed 17 people. And I just wanted to say publicly that, my thoughts and condolences go out to anyone affected. We're in the Philadelphia area. I know a few people who live in Florida. If you're up here and you have anyone who not only went through what they went through in Florida, but just went through something like that, tragedy like that in general, my thoughts and condolences. It's really tough. And the hardest part about it is the kids who went through that, the kids who saw their friends, saw a kid handle violence and aggression in the most negative way possible, in just one aggressive, hateful act. That's so tough. The parents who had to deal with that, not only the parents who lost someone, but then you have survivors. I had a buddy who is in the army, and he had a few deployments in Iraq and Kuwait. And I'm not sure if he went to Afghanistan, but he lost some friends over there. And when you're in a situation where someone else loses their life and you don't, you have survivors, remorse. You have guilt. You're like, why me? Why did I live? So I just feel so sorry for all of the kids. When these are kids, guys, these kids can't even drink yet. Some of them can't even buy a pack of cigs. And now they have to sit here and experience what it's like to be a part of a mass shooting. It's just, we don't want that. And then we have teachers all across the country who are like, I don't know if I can teach anymore. They do their best, but some of them, I'll say majority of them, the majority of them do their very, very best to keep these kids safe. And when you experience something like that, you feel so helpless. You feel so helpless. I read some articles that said some teachers were like, I'm quitting. I can't do this anymore. You feel so helpless and useless because you can't protect the kids. And just my thoughts and condolences goes out to anyone down there suffering that. And it kind of like bears the question, does it start at home? When I hear situations like Vanessa's situation, and I see situations like this 19-year-old kid who shot up the school, it just really drives home the point that it really starts at home to a degree. I mean, you got the whole argument, nature versus nurture. What can the parent control? What can't they control? And that's a really powerful point. Some parents who don't want to accept responsibility, they'll have the argument of, well, I can't control who my kid hangs out with, the friends they hang out with. I'm not with them 24/7. And then you have other parents who shelter their kids too much, who don't want them to be involved in anything. And I think that breeds the problem, because you're preventing them from seeing certain people in certain environments and experiencing certain situations. They won't know how to handle them as an adult. Just take this 19-year-old kid who shot up the school. You don't know what type of impact his parents. I mean, we don't know what his situation is, but I think it's just a really tough situation. So, my thought on that whole situation is just, pay attention to the signs, guys. Do whatever you can. If you see somebody going through something, if you see somebody who potentially could be violent, if you see somebody who is a victim of bullying, just step up, say something, man. Don't just sit there. A lot of people want to sit there until it happens to them. And I get it. You're scared. I do get it. But just look at situations like the Florida shooting, and I just wondered, how much of that could have been prevented if someone said something. So speak up, guys. Speak up. Don't just stand by. And I would love to hear your thoughts on the situation too. And if you have anybody that's affected by the situation, send them a card, man. Do something nice for them. It'll really mean a lot. Little small gestures like that mean a lot. I tell you what means a lot to me, you guys listening. I really do appreciate it. I really do appreciate you guys tuning in on a weekly basis, and keep the feedback coming, guys. Remember, I'll talk if you'll listen at hotmail.com or at ITIYL at hotmail.com. And I'm sorry, on Twitter rather, ITIYL ITIYL on Twitter. Now, as far as the Hotmail goes, guys, you don't include the apostrophes. I had a few people trying to email me, but they said, hey, it wasn't working. You don't include the apostrophes. So emails aren't case sensitive, and you can't have things like commas or apostrophes in there. So it's all smushed together. I'll talk if you'll listen at hotmail.com. So feel free to reach out, guys. And thanks again for tuning in. 4 episodes in the books, guys. We're 4 weeks strong, and I couldn't do this without you. So keep it coming. Until next week, guys, I'll keep talking if you'll listen. Thanks so much. Take care.